let me know what were the things that influenced you in chat. So obviously you had your discussion in your room. Was it was it presence? Was it the words that they were saying? Authenticity, Anya. Okay, so it's just people being themselves, not kind of and a genuine interest, a kind of authenticity and curiosity, calmness. I'm not doing well, am I, Richard? Compassion and passion. Oh, I love that. Compassion times passion. There's some kind of model in that somewhere. Not for today. Presence and body language, and those visual cues. Yeah, I love that, Steve. Kind of both having the expertise, but then being able to kind of communicate that expertise in a way that's compelling. Sarah and I discussed you and Sarah coping this morning. I mean, that probably wasn't a conversation about influence. That was just the incompetence. I don't know. Parental incompetence. I'm not sure. Preparation. Yolanda, are you just trying to stab me now? I am prepared, I promise. I just wasn't prepared for train issues. Okay, so yeah, if you haven't listened to the podcast, I really would recommend it. I loved talking to Constance, and I think it is a particularly practical podcast. What I wanted to do in the time that I've got with you, role modeling, Scott, love that, is share a few other kind of tips and tricks that you might find useful in the context of increasing your influence. So first I want to talk about the 4 Ps. This is very much around how we communicate. So I was talking to Constance about whether it was what people see or what we say that has the most significance in terms of our influence. And she said, well, actually, it's what we say, but it's not necessarily the words, it's how we say it. And so I did a bit of digging into this. And I think there are 4 Ps that you can play with, should you wish to experiment with this stuff, that can help to vary how you say things to vary your influence. So the first one, I think we kind of talked about this when I was in the taxi. This is like a session in 3 modes. But when I was in the taxi and walking, pause. So the power of the pause, whether you're using it as a way to almost stop yourself doing those filler words. So you're kind of tactically going, instead of saying and I'm just going to use silence. So whether you use it in that way, or whether you use it strategically to increase your influence. So for example, you can have an emotional pause, which is where you might tell a story. I might tell you about my little boy, maybe a better one than this morning, but then you might leave a pause so that story sits and it sort of sits in your mind and you can kind of feel that emotion. If I move on too quickly, I might not let that story have significance. So sometimes you can use a pause for emotion. Sometimes you can use a pause for dramatic effect. I might give you a stat which says, the World Economic Forum says that over 40% of the skills that we've got today won't be relevant in 5 years' time. I mean, I'm rubbish at pausing, but you could use a pause to let that sink in. So there's kind of drama, there's emotion, there's reflective pauses. I'd like to take a moment for you to think about what is one thing you want to be true in 6 months' time that is not true today. Again, I'm not going to do it because I'm leaving it to make a point, but you can use a reflective pause. So just varying how you use pauses is an interesting thing for you to do. Also with your influence, think about your pace. So if you want to get people excited, if that's, maybe you're launching something new, you've got a new initiative, the faster you talk, I mean, there's a limit, but the faster you talk, the more excitement that you can generate, the more you can bring people with you. Equally, maybe it's a particularly serious point that you want people to think about, and you've got some really important messages that you want people to take away. A slower pace might help you to do that. The power of your voice. So are you going to talk really quietly? My mum always told me, I don't know whether this is good advice or not, but she always said that the quieter you talk, the more people are sort of forced to listen. So she was like, if you want to influence people, she used to say, she was a sales director, and sometimes she would talk intentionally quiet, so people had to lean in to her to listen to her. And obviously you can project your voice in a way to kind of increase your kind of influence of confidence. So you can kind of play with that as well. And then there's pitch, high pitch, low pitch. High pitch when you're really excited. I can't wait. This is what the new book is coming. This is all true. I'm very excited. And then lower pitch if you're trying to maybe there's something you want to try and do with gravitas. I've actually worked with a speaking coach my pitch is naturally high, my pace is naturally fast. And I have worked with a speaking coach, particularly when I'm doing media interviews. And I don't think that that is the most appropriate way for me to have influence. Like my general sessions, I'm quite an excitable, positive person, so I'm fine with it. But when I'm like, if I'm doing the BBC or Radio 4, they don't really love excitable Helen. So I sort of need to be more serious Helen. And they taught me to like really do like the box breathing. So before I do a session, I don't know if you've done box breathing, but it's where you kind of inhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds. So you kind of go around that circle, just as a way of me calming my pace down. So I kind of try and do that beforehand. And then the other thing, which I'll just do, which is very random, is you have to fill your lungs with air. So you basically like touch your toes. Who knew this was going to be this morning? But you touch your toes, you do some really deep breaths, and then you basically slowly get up so that your lungs are full of air, and it makes your pitch a bit lower. I'm sort of forcing it for you now, but because your lungs are full of air, your pitch is a bit lower. So yeah, all those tips and tricks. Who knew you were going to get? So who knew you were going to get me filling my lungs with air this morning. So I'm not sure if annotation is going to work this morning. Let me have a look. Will annotation work? I'm not sure it will. So can you see view options, everybody, on your screen? If you can, the question that I was going to ask you, but I don't know if it'll work or not. The question I was going to ask you is, could you put a star on which of those you feel like is one that you want to maybe experiment with? But because I'm dialing in slightly differently, I don't know whether we've got our view options annotate mode this morning. If you have, it'll be towards the top of your screen with view options annotate stamp and star. I can't see stars appearing, so it might be that it's not working at the moment. That's fine. Maybe let me know in chat. Came up and then disappeared, Anya. Interesting. I'll work that out later. Not one for now. Let me know in chat. Which one of those do you think, oh, I'd quite like to experiment with? So Amara says pause. Lucy says pace. Pause. Yeah, I really think it's interesting to say, naturally, where do you have some strengths? So I think part of my, a lot of you talked about authenticity. Part of my authenticity is in my pace and pitch, because I am, an excitable, energetic person. So authenticity is that. But if I want to increase my influence, I want to be able to adapt my style to different people. So that's why I sort of work a little bit more on, I try to use pausing. I find that hard. It's the hardest thing for me, but I try to use that. And then also pace, like slowing things down a bit. It's just about you being able to vary this stuff. That's we don't want you to be inauthentic at all, but we do want you to have the tools in your toolkit to be able to adapt so that you can influence different people in different ways. So maybe just have a bit of a play, see what feels naturally comfortable, see what could be a bit of a work in progress. Also, what was I going to say here? This was about aligning what you say with what people see. So this is another thing that Constance talks about in her book, that if you, let's say I'm trying to I'm trying to slow down my voice. So I'm trying to talk more slowly, I'm trying to have a lower pitch. Then what I need to do is align what you are hearing from me with what you are seeing. So what I mean by that is, if I'm gesticulating at the same time and I'm fidgeting and I've got fast body language, do you know what I mean? Like that kind of fast body language, but I'm what you're hearing is kind of slower communication. There isn't the consistency. So, when we talked about authenticity, that comes across as inauthentic. If what you're hearing is like slow, considered Helen, but what you're seeing is me kind of fidgeting, we want alignment. So when you are being really intentional about how you might be using some of those 4 Ps, because I've focused on how you say things, don't forget as well to align that with what people see. So for example, I might, I have even done this before. I've sat on my hands, because I naturally, I don't hold a pen. Sarah, business partner Sarah, tells me off for this all the time. But when I hold a pen in my hand, which we use to draw with the iPad, I can be very like this, a bit unintentionally pointy. It's not, I don't mean to be. So because I know that, when I'm really trying to slow down my pace and kind of lower my pitch, I might even sit on my hands so that it's all congruent. Yeah, and you're holding your hands, that could be a really, really good one. Maybe you might even stand, just because that might feel more intentional. You have almost more, you might have more awareness in the moment. It's just about that, creating that consistency and to get the authenticity, because if we are inauthentic, then we lose our influence. Two more things that I did want to share with you. Three. I told you I was prepared. One of the things that she says, Constance says, that can take away our influence is when we apologize. So this is now on the words. We've talked a little bit about the way we say it. This is now the words. So when we're apologizing all the time, which I probably did 101 times this morning for you, but I feel like we're all friends and I wasn't intentionally trying to influence you. I was just trying to be honest about what was going on. But she said that a much better thing to do, rather than apologize all the time, let's say you're going into a meeting and your tech's not working, or you're late, or let's say you've forgotten something you were going to say, rather than going, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry, which is like our default response a lot of the time. But every time we do that, we tend to take away some of our influence and our impact. She says that a really simple swap for sorry is thank you, which I really like. So thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for your patience. Let's get started. And that it's a bit like swapping the ums and ers for silence. Nice, quick little tactic to play with. Swapping sorries if you feel, yeah, Olga, absolutely, super, very common for British people to do it. If you feel like sorry is very present in your presentations and communication, just get a bit more conscious of it and maybe try a sorry swap. And thank you is the one that she recommends that you do. So I thought that was quite interesting. I have a question for you. When you influence, Constance says that there are 3 different things that you can do. You can use kind of a hard position. I think we should do this. It's the right thing to do. Let's get on with it. Like, it's quite dictatorial, demanding. Soft. I'd love to work with you on this. I feel like this is something that we could do together. I love working with you. Let's make this happen. It's kind of soft thing, a bit more empathy in it. Or rational. The reason we should do this is that if we don't, we're going to lose 20% of our workforce to our competitor. And it will literally take us 4 weeks to turn this around. So I've kind of got some like 20% and the timing in there. I've kind of got some stats and facts in there. Which one do you think is the most significant for influence? We're going to have to use it in chat, but let me know, hard, soft, or rational. Which do you think? Gary's like, I love a bit of rational. I love a bit of rational. Which do you think? It's a slight trick question. Slight trick question, but I'm interested. So yeah, she starts off in the book and basically says, if you were only to go with one mode, if you were only to go with one of these things, then rational is the way to go. That is the most influential kind of position to take when you're trying to influence people. But she actually says that if you can combine these two, that's the power duo, rational with a bit of kind of soft empathy. But the importance with the soft approach is that it's got to be genuine and authentic. So it's not kind of like, oh, it's so nice working with you, I love it, let's make this happen. It's your relationship with that person and your genuine connection to them is an important part if you're going to do that. I have one last thing to do. I know we're at time. I'm just going to do this really quickly because I maybe will send this to you afterwards. This is Robert Caldini's, who's like the guru of influence and persuasion, his 6 principles of persuasion. What I will do after today is we will send you in the email that you get after Pod Plus a link to a really good video, a visual video, what they call them, the drawing videos where people like, they what's the word? They illustrate the point. Anyway, I'll send you a good video which brings to life. But these are 6 different principles of influence and persuasion. So the other thing that you can play around, thanks, Joe, thanks, an animation. I mean, it's not a hard word, is it, Helen? But 6 different principles for how you can influence people. So liking, can you kind of influence people by building a bit of connection with them? Reciprocity, so if I do this, then you. Authority, so you're like, I'm the expert here, I've worked here for a long time, I know this subject, whatever that would be. Scarcity, we've only got 1 week to sort this out. Everybody else joins Pod Plus, so why don't you? Social proof. or consistency. You get someone to say, in this situation, what would you do? And they say, oh, I'd absolutely give someone feedback. And then you go, brilliant, could I have some feedback on this? And then because they have basically said that they would, they now have to act in a way that is consistent with what they've said, if that makes sense. I have flown through that, but his work on those 6 principles is something that I've played with a lot in my corporate life. Like, how can I influence stakeholders with one of these 2 dimensions? I've also, as a marketeer, I've also used it with consumer behavior as well. I find it very, very, very helpful. I am very sorry that has been a little bit rushed. I have some good news for you though. You can win Constance's book. I'm going to post this on Instagram later today. Constance's book, actually, this copy could be yours. It's been carried around by me. I don't think that makes it any better, but I'm going to put a competition on later about kind of who influences you and why. So you've already talked about that, so you've got a head start. All you've got to do is put it on Instagram later, and then we'll draw the competition in a few days. So if you do want to get hold of a copy and you haven't already bought it, or you want to get it and give it to someone else, enter the competition. Great to see my human side. I mean, yeah. It's life, right? Well, never mind. I can't control trains, and sometimes I forget the tooth fairy. There we go. But lovely to see you all. Thank you all for your patience. I hope it has still been helpful. I hope I managed to cram in some useful things for you to take away, everybody. Only control what you can control. That may be my quote of the day, Adam. Thank you for your words of wisdom. See you all soon, everybody. Take care. See you all soon. Bye. Bye.